Welcome back to Troubleshooting Agile. Hi there, Jeffrey, and hi, Gene.
Hey, Squirrel.
Hello again.
So for those who don't remember, or maybe you're just coming along to this episode having not listened to the previous two, consider listening to the previous two because we've been having a wonderful conversation over that time with our friend Gene Kim, who's very happy to come back and discuss with us as much as possible. I think we have trouble stopping him talking about the exciting world of vibe coding and AI-assisted agentic code production. And he's been telling us sort of the wonders of these tools and how it's changed his week, changed what he does day to day, how it's changing the lives and the experiences of teams. And we've talked a lot about how those teams might look. And I asked him back, I said last week, Hey, Gene, would you mind if I'm a little more skeptical, if I have some argument with you and tell you that there are some things that might not work as well? And Gene, you still up for that, or are you feeling ready? Your gloves on, your protective gear is ready for some debate and discussion?
Yeah, I can't speak for the entire industry, but I can certainly speak for myself. Absolutely, my own opinions, are only my own.
Well, Gene has 25 years of very well-developed opinions, starting with the Phoenix Project and moving on to a huge amount of other material. So I imagine that we're going to have a very interesting discussion here. But let me get started, Gene, with one area that I feel pretty strongly about, and it's more an area of clarification than debate. So we'll start gently, and that is that I was with a group of very highly placed, very rich hedge fund managers a few weeks ago, and I was talking with them about AI and all the possibilities and what it could do for them and so on, and it dawned on me halfway through the conversation that every one of them thought that the way you interacted with AI is by chatting to it. And that's a very natural thing for them to think. They're sitting there saying, the way I, a non-technical person in charge of a whole operation, trading loads and loads of shares and in charge of lots of money, the best thing I could do is to talk to something that would solve problems for me. And so they were not aware that a lot of the things we've been talking about are, in fact, tools that, yes, they involve a certain amount of typing to give commands, but mainly you're not actually chatting. It's not an experience that is chat heavy. And I just thought you could describe that a little bit, maybe for those who haven't jumped in the water yet, who haven't experienced that, who are thinking, well, I go to chatgpt.com and I type stuff and it gives me stuff back. Is there something else? What does that look like for non-technical people?
Yeah, there's this whole generation of tools called agentic coding tools. So, Claude Code is probably the first of it that pioneered the field. There's OpenAI Codex. There's Google Gemini CLI for command line interface. There's RuCode. There's all these other tools. And essentially, it can, you chat to it, but actually, instead of giving you answers in a kind of web browser, it will actually generate code for you on your file system. So, I was just with a friend who, was helping him get started, and we were rewriting this prototype new buying experience that they have. And one of the first things that we did is we gave it a tool so that it could open up web browsers, and so they could see the output of its own work, right? And so that he could actually say, make this text in this box smaller, or add a sort field and make sure that it actually changes the sort order. It knows CSS, right? It knows all these things. But and I think the important thing is that what is magical about agentic coding is that when you give it the ability to see the effects of its own work, right? So that it can check itself. And so instead of it telling
but
you,
let's go even more fundamental,
Yeah.
Gene. I just want to make sure this is really clear, because it was astonishing to me that so many folks I was talking to a few weeks ago didn't understand this, and I think some of our listeners might not. The output of what that person is typing, your friend who's building this tool, is a piece of code. And this code can run, and it has nothing to do with AI. You don't chat to it. You don't type things and get something else back. It doesn't hallucinate. It doesn't do any of this stuff. It's presenting some information on a web page. And what you're describing, if I understand it right, is you were helping the bit that you were talking to create that by giving it visibility of what it had created and letting it see, yes, I created this page and it's not quite right. Oh, wait a minute, I forgot the logo. Let me put that in. And the chatting happens in the creation, but the output is not something you chat with. and people have a
Right.
hard time getting their heads around that. It's surprising to us technical folks because it's very natural to us, but I just want to emphasize that, and I'm curious if you've seen that same kind of mental barrier.
Yeah, in fact, one of the biggest reflections I had from this friend of mine was I had no the big game changer for me was giving it the tools so that it could not only see its own work, but actually go to other URLs, that it could actually go into my pre-production database and rummage around on its own. And the output is not advice or instructions; it's actually changes in the code itself, 100%.
And we'll talk about some of the implications of that. But one I want to just underline right now for later reference is you're treating that AI almost like an employee. So it's almost like you just hired someone maybe who just came out of university, studied coding, has a computer science degree, doesn't know a lot about your environment. So whatever your friend does, probably you had to tell it a lot about that domain and that industry in order for it to produce useful web pages. But then it would go off and do work just like an employee would. And so what I see folks doing, again, this doesn't match this sort of chatbot experience that's sort of democratized, that lots of people, millions or billions of people have seen. You give it a command, it goes off and talks to itself and produces things and tries things and looks at HTML pages, and 2 hours later, you come back and it's produced something, and you say, okay, try something else. And another hour later, you come back and it has the web pages that you were looking for in the app that it was trying to build. So, Gene, is that the kind of experience you were having? Is that what you're seeing?
Yeah, I would say instead of an hour later, it's probably like a minute or two later. And what's magical about it is that it's so parallelizable. In other words, you can while you're waiting a whole minute for it to build something, you open up a new window and start another stream of work, and you can
Mm-hmm.
just keep doing that. And soon the bottleneck you'll find is not the LLM or the AI; it is your ability to organize and sequence and merge all that work together.
And that's the place I first want to cross-examine you a little bit. And I want to start by giving you a historical analog. Do you know anything? Have you ever heard of an art technique, an art method called an atelier? It's used by extremely prolific artists like Damien Hirst or Rembrandt. Is that a familiar idea to you?
Yeah, is this the my head is going to the pixelization, the pointless technique? Actually, assume no.
Okay, and that's all right, no problem. And I'm not expecting you to. An atelier is the French for school, and so sometimes you'll go into an art gallery, and I know this because my wife is an art historian. It's not because I know this stuff, but you'll go into an art gallery and it'll say from the school of Rembrandt. Sometimes you'll buy a Damien Hirst painting, and Damien Hirst didn't make any of the dots on the painting. His school, his junior assistants created the actual thing that he has signed, and he gets all the credit and all the money, but they learn from him and they do all the kind of grunt work to make it happen. The thing that I'm observing, and I want to see if you see the same thing, is that you need a particular master. You need someone who's really good, who can produce this kind of tool, this kind of work together, and therefore has to set it all up for those people. I'm just curious what you see in that direction. What do you see of the complexity and the type of person you need to run that? It's not an ordinary developer. It's not someone who just graduated from university.
Yeah, that is a great. Well, that's a great point. Yeah, and it resonates deeply with me. I'm studying the Wikipedia page on Atelier, and yeah, I think it's in the book we called it. We used the metaphor or the representation of the task graph, right? So to achieve a goal, you kind of decompose it into tasks, right? And the senior person is responsible for creating the tree and partitioning the tree and breaking up into modules, right? Then you kind of assign progressively more junior people for the modules, and then you have the leaf nodes, which are typically assigned to your junior developer.
And when you're doing this, you create a little plan, right? You actually write down that tree for the AIs, the multiple AIs you're working with in parallel to follow.
Absolutely. And the observation is that the height of the leaf nodes and the parents that an LLM can do is continue to grow. In other words, the difference between LLM models a year and a half ago and now is that the leaf nodes maybe LMs could a year and a half ago could do some fraction of the leaf nodes. Maybe the observation now is that it can do almost all the leaf nodes, and maybe not just the leaf nodes, but the leaf nodes and their parents, right? And that height of that capabilities just can continue to grow and grow. And
and that's the place I want to challenge you is how on earth do we find the people who are able to juggle like that? Because those people are rare. You clearly are one such person. Steve Yega is clearly one such person. Our listeners are unlikely to hire either of you. And they may have a situation. I was talking to someone today who's in Atlanta, Georgia, not a startup hub, not a source of huge amounts of development capability, perfectly capable developers there, but he's not got access to the types of cutting edge, very senior, super experienced people who say, great, let's talk about the leaf nodes. Let's try to get everything handed out in an effective way. And I'm wondering, how do people like that make use of these tools at best capacity? It seems like a real problem.
Gosh, I actually believe that this will be the main skill of the next generation of developers. And I think what we really got right in the book was some of these kind of timeless principles, that will last, hopefully a decade, but maybe 5 years, right? Things like you need to decompose the task graph. You need to have modular boundaries between them so you can have independence of action. You need fast feedback loops, and you need tighter guardrails, because the control system must always be faster than what is controlling, right? These are all things that, come from information theory and control theory. And increasingly, the job of the developer is not to do the execution and code generation of leaf nodes and the leaf nodes plus one. It is about specification so that an LM can do it for them, and probably more importantly, at scale, right, do it in parallel. And so in the Vibe Coding book, we use the term that we first used in the Wiring the Winning Organization book that I wrote with Dr. Steven Spear, the socio-technical maestro. High energy, high standards, right? Great in the large, great in the small, and they love walking the floor, right? And you need that sort of sensibility to make sure that you're organizing the work in a way so that it can be done by an LLM, and ideally many, many LLMs in parallel. So I met this guy named Stuart Pierce. He's part of HG, so they're a private equity firm. And he was telling me how he could almost predict which senior engineers would jump into vibe coding, agentic coding, and which ones would resist. And he said it was three things. It was, are they good at specification? Are they good at delegation? And are they willing to jump in and do the last 5% by hand if they needed to? And I was telling that to a friend of mine. He's an executive director at a large entertainment company, and his eyes lit up when I told him that, because he said, I saw the same things. In fact, some of the engineers who were pushing back the most surprised me so much that I actually pulled their performance reviews. And the common denominator was, we want to give you more responsibility, but you have to learn how to delegate more, which is amazing because that's actually a teachable skill. And so to your friend in Atlanta, I would say, somewhere in your organization, there may be some people at the frontier. Like one of my goals is to meet the top token burners in each organization. I met one from John Deere. His name is Rodo Abad. And it turns out he's not only the top token burner inside of John Deere, but the GitHub team told him that he was one of the top 5% of GitHub Copilot users on the planet. And
Wow.
So he's independently deriving all these kind of lessons that we put into the Vibe Coding book. And so, somewhere in your organization is maybe your equivalent of that person, or there's someone who wants to be, and it is absolutely learnable.
And so what we should arm them with is a copy of your Vibe Coding book, because that's where they're going to see all of these tools and get started on their journey to becoming that top token burner. Does that sound right, Gene?
I think it does, yeah. And one of the things that's kind of funny is that there are all these holdouts. Someone joked, some of the top advocates and the people who are using this technology most ferociously and with so much enthusiasm, they're like in their 50s and 60s. So I would point to Adrian Cockcroft and Kent Beck and Steve Yegi, maybe myself, right? And junior engineers that are kind of, this is the only way they would ever program. And in the middle are these senior staff engineers, right, who are digging in their heels and some speculation is that maybe they feel like they have the most to lose or something. So I think there's a fascinating change adoption dynamic that on one hand is very familiar, but in a totally different context.
Okay. And I want to challenge you with one more thing before we run out of time, and that is that we've talked about the complexity, about how the people who are most successful are the ones who use the tool a lot, who burn a lot of tokens. Here's a worry that I have, and it's a way that all this wonderful technology can be misused. Gene, are you familiar with a fantastic tool called the Sawzall, Sawzall?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, right. So it's a fantastic tool that is extremely sharp. It can saw through anything. It has tremendous power, and people have a habit of sawing through different parts of their bodies with it because they get hold of it, and it's so powerful they can't actually handle it. And that's, I think, the danger of talking about vibe coding, which of course, when Karpathy announced it and coined the term, he was talking about stuff that would never see production, right? That you would try out, play around with, see how it worked, learn a lot of things, but you weren't actually going to take anything and make use of it for real users who had real data who really wanted to get a result. And you're coming along and saying, hey, here's a Sawzall. It's loads of fun. Try it out. Let's see what happens. And I don't think I'm being fair to you when I say that. And I want to hear your mitigation and your thoughts on it. But a worry I have is that we're going to tell everybody, hey, we now have something that'll cut through anything. It'll cut through any problem you've got. Use it for everything. And by the way, don't worry about any of the safety nets. Just go ahead and take all the safety catches off. And I don't think we mean that, but I'm worried that some listeners, some people who are following this are going to say, if some of this is good, more of it is better. Let's put it all in production and see what happens. And that's got me worried about, having that in my car or my airplane. So I wonder what you think about the safety elements of people maybe misinterpreting the concept of vibe coding and saying, let's let the AI write everything and take all the protections off.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. In fact, I think kind of one interpretation of Dr. Andrej Karpathy's description of vibe coding is that you turn your brain off. And so I think it's not absolutely mandatory that you turn your brain off. In fact, the subtitle for our book is Writing Production-Ready, software, right? That's that's safe to use, and that requires absolutely not turning your brain off. And one of the things that we talk about at excruciating length is how dangerous these tools can be, right? We know that there are limitations around the context window. We know that, they're not very good at instruction following. We know that, they're prone to hacking the reward function, right? Saying that I did something, I changed 10 out of 10 things, but they only did 8, right? But despite that, these things are so valuable for developers to use in their daily work. So despite all that, we should be using it. In fact, Steve said in the book, he said something really amazing. He said, "Isn't that what engineering is? You create reliable things out of unreliable components." Right? And I thought that was just a visionary thing. And I would just go back to Dr. Eric Meyer, right, one of the greatest programming language designers of all time, who says none of us should be coding by hand, right? And let's talk about why. He said time can neither be stored nor generated. Right. And so if we as programmers can find ways to save time, we have to take it. And so, there are so many things in coding agents that still need to be developed that right now we have to sort of do manually, and we have to rely on supervision and judgment. And I'm sure as the quarters go by, right, more and more will be taken over by tools to alleviate the human mental burden of that. But it is so valuable as it is right now. In fact, in the book, we say, even if AI progress stopped like right now, right, we are so much better off than we were a year and a half ago that we would be idiots not to use this miraculous new technology.
And I also agree with you that there's tremendous benefit to be had, but I am also waiting for the first post-mortem, in the long line of CrowdStrike and Airbus planes that crash themselves and Boeing planes that, go the wrong direction. And doors that fall off, as we're looking at all those catastrophes, one of them is going to be somebody wrote some vibe code and they put it in production and they shouldn't. And that doesn't mean we should throw the baby out with the bathwater, because there's so much benefit to society from using these tools, but there's a cautionary note there. be careful.
Yeah.
These things can hurt you. It's a sawzall. And if you're not sure how to do it, maybe you should read a book on that topic, and you should get good at it, and you should hire some experts who can really help you with it. So a book we would really recommend that would help you get started with all of that is Gene's Vibe Coding book. And I wonder, Gene, if you could just tell us, where could our listeners find it? How could they learn more from you as a result of all the knowledge you've built up experimenting with these tools?
Absolutely, yeah. So the Vibe Coding book is available everywhere. It's been out since mid-October, and it's available at your favorite book retailers all around you. And Steve and I have a new podcast we call Vibe Coding with Steve and Gene that we've been sort of chronicling our learnings and discoveries about things that went well, things that went not so well, things that we're sort of chronicling what we've learned since the book came out. And to reach out to me, I'm Real Gene Kim on Twitter, X, and I'm on LinkedIn. And just feel free to reach out, and I would love to hear from you.
Wonderful. Well, Gene, thank you so much for spending a couple weeks here, 3 weeks with us here on episodes of Troubleshooting Agile. You helped us get started because, of course, you helped us publish Agile Conversations through IT Revolution, one of our favorite places to get fantastic new ideas. And we're very grateful to you, Gene, both for helping us get going 400 episodes later and for giving us some tremendous insights into the world of vibe coding. Thanks so much for
I have one more
joining
thing.
us. Oh, yeah, one more thing. But wait, there's one more thing. Go ahead.
There is one more thing. Yeah, so actually, because the field has changed so quickly, we actually decided, a whole bunch of people said, like, we can't wait a whole year for a conference to come out. So I've been running a 2-hour monthly forum for technology leaders and people at the frontier, just to the goal is to give experience reports and leave time for Q&A, which we don't actually have in the in our conferences, and 1 hour unconference style just for group learning. So if that is of any interest to you, I'll give a link for the show notes, and or just email me.
Excellent. We'll certainly tell listeners to do that. Speaking of email, we love hearing from our listeners, and we can certainly pass on feedback and arguments and debate and discussion to our friend Gene. And the way that you can find us is by going over to agileconversations.com, where you'll find our book, Agile Conversations, published with Gene through IT Revolution, and free material on our methods and techniques for leading your team more effectively, including in the AI world. And we'd love to hear from you there. We've also got our Twitter and our email and our Sora, and I don't know what else we're on, but any place you can find us, you'll find all those methods there. So pick your favorite one and get it over to us, because some of our best episodes have come from listener suggestions, debates, discussions. Of course, the other way to stay in touch with us is to come back again next week when we'll have another edition of Troubleshooting Agile. Thanks, Jeffrey and Gene.
Thanks, Squirrel. Thanks, Gene.
Thank you, guys.